Hello. I made it just in time too. I always feel really accomplished when I'm actually starting, like, on the nose at 3 o'clock. Um, Hi, Blue. I am very excited for this stream today. Normally, like, the rest of the week and the weekend goes by, and I forget a few things, or I'm just like, enough time has passed that I'm not in that headspace of like thinking about things in the book, but I've honestly just been like thinking about Yuwu constantly, so I'm really excited to get into it today. Hi, War Dove. And we certainly had an eventful stream last time. I'm looking at this book trying to figure out how many streams it's gonna take. I think it might be the same as the last one. I can't tell if it's shorter or not. Yeah, like, it, because it's just like my short-term memory being so bad sometimes that usually a few days pass of like not engaging in something and I'm like, okay, I'm not in that headspace anymore. But this time it was just like, no, I couldn't wait for it to be today so we could like do the stream and read it again. Oh, thank you, Blue. It's just slightly shorter. Okay. So it'll probably take 6 streams for this one too. Yeah. And on Wednesday, it's my anniversary with my girlfriend. It's actually been 9 years. Which is, like, wild to think about. So I was, like, she gets off work at 4, and at first I was just gonna do a 1-hour stream instead of 2 hours on Wednesday, but instead I am moving the stream over to Thursday, 3 to 5, because, Brittany Gaywatch is like on her break this week, so I was like, it's a perfect time to like do it on Thursday instead. Thank you, War Dove. Thank you, Blue. Oh, it's actually longer. Why does it look slimmer? Like, that's weird. Is it like the length of the whole book is more pages, or just like the actual book part is longer? Because I'm wondering if maybe the appendix in the other one was longer or something. But okay, good to know. Henry. Oh, yeah, no, that's totally understandable. Completely understand. You are not late to me actually reading, but I think I'm gonna get started, and we are on page 109 for chapter 107, which is called His Only Stain. Super ominous title, but very interested to see what it's about. And thank you, Henry. Oh, yes, you are not qualified to talk to me, this one. Why would Gumong use Moshi's ribbon to tie up his hair? Jiang Yeshue's mind was spinning with thoughts. Moshi was a clean freak. He never used other people's things, and others had better not think of touching his. But even disregarding Moshi's peculiarities, this situation was bizarre. Under what circumstances would someone take another person's hair ribbon by accident? The two of them had to have undone their hair and then put it back up. The more he thought about it, the graver his expression became. With a soft tap of Jiang Yeshue's fingers, he sent the wheelchair gliding soundlessly over to Gumong and peered down. This hair ribbon, trimmed in gold, was embroidered with the soaring snake pattern. It definitely belonged to Moshi. Could it be that? Jiang Yeshue's heartbeat sped up. With bated breath, His eyes traced down from the hair ribbon to Gumong's collar, where his lapels lay slightly open, but other than a mole on the side of his neck, there were no other marks. And at this moment, perhaps because he'd stared too long, Gumong's senses prickled. His eyes flew open and he turned his head. As his gaze met Jiang Yeshui's, all sleepiness vanished. Jiang Xiong. Gumong sat up, rubbing his hair. Are we almost there? Is it time to get up? Jiang Yeshui cleared his throat and tore his eyes away from Gumong's neck. No, I just came inside to get ready to rest. I saw you were sleeping and didn't wish to wake you. I didn't think I'd disturb you. Although he spoke evenly, his face was a little red as he turned aside and ducked his head in embarrassment. Gumong took note of Jiang Yeshui's reaction. After a beat of silence, he summoned a lazy smile and said, Don't worry, I wake up easily. It's not your fault. Jiang Yeshui kept his eyes on the floor. You should go back to sleep. I'll go wash up. All right. The instant Jiang Yeshui's figure disappeared behind the bamboo screen in the cabin, the smile on Gumong's face vanished. He quickly rose and stepped up to the copper mirror to scrutinize his face. As far as he could remember, he and Moshi hadn't kissed, but his mind hadn't been clear, so he wasn't entirely confident of that. Jiang Yeshui's reaction was strange enough that Gumong wanted to check himself over once more. After a long look, he found no marks whatsoever. Only then did he sigh in relief and lie back down in bed. He was probably overthinking. When he and Moshi were together, he often worried that others would find out about their relationship. After each dalliance, he would pull Moshi over and check every inch of his exposed skin for kiss marks, then make Moshi do the same to him. The intensity of their passion in those days had been too absurd. Gumong genuinely feared that others might discover them. Moshi was a noble of the highest, most unattainable class. He hailed from 4 generations of heroes, descended from a line of generals. The daughters of the finest aristocratic families didn't dare dream of marrying him. If their secret were revealed, if it got out that the son of such heavenly lineage shared his bed with a filthy slave, what consequences would Moshi face? Gumong had nothing, so he didn't care if others criticized him. But Moshi was different. His status was high, his reputation clear, his nature kind and righteous. He was so young and so pure. His involvement with Gumong was the only stain on this noble youth. Gumong feared such a stain would ruin Moshi's life, so he didn't see it as Moshi did. Moshi treated the most beautiful vision of their future together as his goal, heedlessly forging ahead in that direction, while Gumong hung up their most terrifying possible end as a warning bell, constantly reminding himself not to indulge in impossible dreams. The contrast between them now was all the more stark. Moshi was Chonghua's most celebrated general, while Gumong had become the nation's most reviled traitor. In the time since his memories returned, Gumong had thought back on all the things Moshi had done since their paths crossed again. Visiting him at Luomei Pavilion, protecting him at Wangshu Manor, asking for him in the throne room, even trying to stop the fight at the New Year's Eve feast. He felt himself drenched in cold sweat. It was outrageous, all of it. Was Moshi crazy? Why did he still protect him? Everything he had done in the past, was it not enough to make Moshi hate him to the core? Had Gumong been lucid, he would have absolutely never allowed Moshi to behave so foolishly. On the surface, nothing was obviously odd. Moshi's actions could be chalked up to the strength of their brotherhood, or to the depth of Moshi's grudge, so bitter he longed to torment this felon with his own 2 hands. But from another angle, a decorated general of the empire, one known to keep his distance from men and women alike, went to a brothel again and again for a traitor. Not only did he pay to bed said traitor, he even asked the emperor for him before the assembled imperial court. Upon taking custody of this condemned criminal, he had neither imprisoned nor brutalized him. Rather, he'd given him all he could ask for in food and drink, personally taught the traitor to read, and taken him to the healer for medicine. This traitor slept in General Mo's bed, wore General Mo's clothes, shared food at General Mo's table, and listened to General Mo reading poetry on a snowy night. What the actual fuck was he doing? Moshi was insane. When Gumong turned his back on Chonghua, the last thing he wanted was any further connection to Moshi. But none of his careful planning had included his own amnesia or Moshi's mule-like stubbornness. He began to worry. If someone came to stir up shit and asked what kind of punishment that damnable traitor was enduring in Shiha Manor, how would Moshi answer? Despite racking his brains, Gumong was unable to think of a single acceptable response Moshi could give. What was he going to say? This general swore at him once in a moment of boredom. Forget the absurdity of what had transpired last night. Neutralizing poison, controlled by the drug, what a joke. The one who had been dosed with aphrodisiac was Gumong, not Moshi. Had any other traitor been inflamed by lust to the point of wishing for death, would a cold beauty like General Mo have lowered himself to personally relieve their torment? Hacking them to death would be considered merciful. Gumong wasn't stupid. He knew Moshi still held him in his heart. Henry. Oh my god, how is it he's the only man with a gaydar? That, right, like, he just kind of clocked them just right off the bat with that. Also, hi, Nina. My poor closeted love. Do you mean Zhang Yeshue? Because I could see that. Oh. Thank you. Wait, hold on. We're gonna have a cup moment because this is entirely Jing Guanyao and Lan Shichen themed, like, fully. Which, I don't know, might be controversial to some people, I'm not sure. Maybe not. And then, wait, down here. It's kind of hard to see, but... Thank you. I mean, like, he's terrible, but I love him. But he's terrible. That's how it is. We're on page 113. The enormity of it stunned him, but it also sunk him into utter despair. He could scheme over every black and white chess piece on the board, all of them save for his general, his lover, his princess, the piece he wanted to protect the most. Moshi was not under his control, and this man he couldn't control had made a mistake and slept with him again. But it couldn't go any further. Just like the secret affair and ceaseless lust of their youth, their love and desire stopped here. It could never stand in the light of day. It could never walk the honorable path. If what happened last night was made known, Moshi would fall into an endless hell alongside him, forever unable to cleanse his name. With all this in mind, Gumong found himself glancing back toward where Zhang Yeshue had disappeared. Lowering his head guiltily, he sniffed himself once, then twice, to be sure. All he smelled was the faint scent of soap. Zhang Yeshue wasn't of the feathered tribe. He couldn't have noticed any less perceptible scents. He was probably overthinking. Gumong sighed, burying his face in the bedding and digging his hands into the blankets. Moshi My princess. My little dummy. Oh, what should I do with you? He slept until the sun sank below the horizon. So, not once did he think about the hair ribbon, huh? Yeah. That's relatable, honestly. I've had so many times where I'm anxious about something, and then I'm like, no, I must be overthinking, and I go over every possible, like, thing except for the one obvious point, and I just go, oh, no, I'm fine. Completely miss it. At twilight, their walnut ship finally reached the outskirts of Chonghua's capital. The tea stalls had long packed up, and the streets were mostly empty. Murong Chuyi touched down soon after. He disembarked from his pleasure boat and briskly turned to leave. Yue Chunqing haltingly spoke up. Fourth uncle. Murong Chuyi acted as if he hadn't heard. Clad head to foot in clothes whiter than snow, he left without a backward glance. Yue Chunqing's head drooped. Jiang Yeshui comforted him. Don't worry, he'll cool off. Moshi sighed inwardly at this pair of nephews, then gazed after Murong Chuyi's retreating back. Between the three of them, Jiang Yeshui still seemed the steadier senior by every measure, despite Murong Chuyi being older by a few years. But these were the difficulties of a family he didn't belong to, and it wasn't his place to speak. Just as he prepared to turn away, he glimpsed one of Chonghua Bridge's stone pillars. Moshi's gaze darkened for a moment. The old beggar from the time mirror was gone. He'd passed in the second year after Gumong defected. That familiar beggar's song would never ring out here again. Gumong strolled over to Moshi, nudging him with an elbow and crossing his arms. Hey, what's Shiha Jun looking at with those wistful eyes? Murong Xiansheng? Moshi immediately turned. Don't speak nonsense. I got you, didn't I? You're just mad because you got caught. Ha ha ha. After laughing a moment, he realized even Zhang Yeshui and Yue Chunqing were looking at him sternly. Gumong tactfully pursed his lips and chuckled dryly. Well, sorry, everyone. Just trying to lighten the mood. Moshi didn't bicker with him. I'm leaving too, he said. I'll go to the palace and report back to His Imperial Majesty. Don't I need to enter the palace too? Gumong asked. No, go back to Shiha Manor without me. Gumong smiled. Can I stroll around instead? I'll change my features. No one will notice a thing. Where do you want to go? Anywhere. The pastry stall at the Eastern Market, the Shadow Plays at the Western Market, Apricot Mansion in the south, the Perfumed Alley in the north. Absolutely not, Moshi said coldly. I just want to look around. I won't bed anyone. Moshi ground his molars. He didn't explode, but it looked as if he was using a lifetime's worth of forbearance to keep his cool. He lowered his head to look at Gumong and pushed out a sentence from between his teeth. Go back to the manor and wait. Seeing them fight again, Zhang Yeshui sighed. Gu Xiong, the matter of you recovering your memories will be revealed the instant you step into a brothel. Beauties are nice, but isn't your life more important? Fair enough. Zhang Xiong's quite reasonable. Gumong heaved a sigh as well. But frankly, Shiha Manor is far too cold and lonely. I didn't mind it when I was witless, but it's going to be a bore now. Why don't I come visit Zhang Xiong's manor instead? I need to take Chunqing to Jiang Manor. Chunqing and Xiaozhou were both injured, so we'll need to ask Medicine Master Jiang to treat them and get some medicine for Xiaozhou. All right, go on then, Gumong replied wearily. I'll obediently go back and lie down. Moshi, can you at least bring me a pack of cards when you come back? Your manor is way too dull. I'd rather go to Luomei Pavilion. He was still speaking when Moshi turned to leave. Moshi was a key minister in the Bureau of Military Affairs and the descendant of a prestigious family. In recognition of his status, The late emperor had bestowed a token upon him that allowed him to enter the core of the imperial city unannounced. Nonetheless, Moshi had always understood the rules. Heavenly grace was one thing, but the emperor's heart was another. Though he had this sort of privilege, he never used it. Just as he had in the time mirror, Moshi walked past the ranks of imperial guards. The soldiers turned toward him, lowering their heads to make their obeisance. Their armor shone in the last glow of twilight, scarlet feathers on their helmets rustling. Though Moshi had never taken note of it before now, he realized that the imperial guards from 8 years ago seemed to have all been replaced. He didn't see a single familiar face among these inner guards of the imperial city. "Ayo, Shihajun, you're back." The attendant eunuch Li paid his respects to Moshi as soon as he saw him, sinking into a deep bow. This old slave greets Shihajun. Moshi stopped. "Could you please report that Moshi seeks an audience with His Imperial Majesty?" "His Imperial Majesty is indisposed and has already retired for the evening," Eunuch Li replied. In silence, Moshi glanced at the illuminated doors of the Great Hall. "Shihajun, please don't misunderstand. The one inside the Great Hall isn't His Majesty," Eunuch Li hastily explained, following the direction of Moshi's gaze. Moshi furrowed his brow. "Then who is it?" As he was about to answer, a thought seemed to occur to Eunuch Li. Casting a sidelong glance at Moshi, he plastered on the sort of warm and suggestive smile the ladies of the harem knew well. Unfortunately, Moshi was not of the harem and had no idea what the smile implied. "What is it? Why are you smiling?" he asked, bemused. Eunuch Li bowed and led him into the Golden Hall's library, smile never faltering. "Nothing, nothing. Perhaps it's perfect timing. This old slave thinks the one inside the Great Hall would most certainly like to see Shihajun." "Who?" "Shihajun, if you please." Eunuch Li wouldn't answer, and Moshi didn't like beating around the bush. He glanced suspiciously at Eunuch Li's stupid smile, paused a moment, and pushed open the doors to the hall. The sandalwood doors creaked, and the night wind rushed in, setting the lights in the phoenix candelabras aflicker. The handmaiden Yuenyang started. She hastily fell to her knees and kowtowed. "This servant greets Shihajun." At this, the figure sitting in the middle of those piled official documents lifted her head and met his gaze. Moshi found himself at a loss for words. Princess Mengzi's pretty eyes widened in surprise, a smile blooming across her face like a lotus in clear water. "Ah, it's Modaga." That is the end of that chapter. I was thinking that chapter title, His Only Stain, was interesting because I was wondering if we were going to get Gumong's stain. Like, does Gumong think of something he's done specifically as a stain, or does he think of Moshi as his stain the way Moshi thinks of Gumong as his stain? But it was just more about Gumong being Moshi's stain. So it didn't quite flip that the way I thought it was going to. But I'm looking at the chat. Yeah, that was an interesting chapter, though. I also had the thought, did we know that there were eunuchs in this world? Because I kind of forget if that's been introduced to us as a thing, or if they were just like, here's this character who's a eunuch. By the way, like, there are eunuch slaves, too. I might have just forgotten. I don't think we know how the princess is related to the emperor. It seems like a very big family. Oh, Henry, it wasn't introduced before. Okay, no wonder I was like, wait a minute, a eunuch. Like, okay, that's a thing in this imperial court too, I guess. um, okay. She might be the emperor's sister. Yeah, I don't know if if Meat Bun has told us that. Well, we are on chapter 108, which is called Women Are So Hard to Deceive. No matter how oblivious Moshi might be, it was impossible to misunderstand Eunuch Lee's suggestive tone at this point. Seething, he turned around, only to find that the sly old fox had already made himself scarce. Moshi was rendered speechless. He sighed as he entered the hall and crossed to Mengzi's desk. "What are you doing here?" The night was cold and crisp, and Mengzi's health was frail, so she wore a pale blue coat even indoors. She coughed, then said warmly, "Imperial brother is ill. In the past few days, he hasn't had time to go through the memorials, so I came to assist." So, she is his sister, I guess. Murong Mengzi, a mere woman, had not risen to the position of one of Chonghua's 3 gentlemen without reason. She treated the common people with lenience and virtue, was well versed in matters both political and military, and was no man's inferior when it came to the management of a nation. Though she was physically frail, it was only because she had healed Moshi years ago and succumbed to a chronic ailment afterward. Before that, both her magical abilities and the strength of her spiritual energy reflected an extraordinary innate talent that left her contemporaries, male or female, in the dust. She could no longer fight on the front lines these days, but she could still sit in the command tent. If only the 9 provinces had a precedent of women rulers, the emperor likely would have bestowed on her an official title and the accompanying authority to exercise her true capabilities. Regrettably, women were still women in the eyes of too many. In their opinion, ladies should be arranging their hair in a window or making themselves up in a mirror. Even if they excelled in scholarship or strategy, it would be better to devote themselves to their husbands, fathers, or brothers, the real court officials. What need was there for any girl to show her face in public? Thus, though Murong Mengzi was of royal blood, the first princess of a nation, people would usually only mention her to say, "Oh, that's Shihajun's future wife. They just haven't tied the knot yet." Though the healing techniques and military stratagems she devised in her youth were impressive, the public's most positive impression of her boiled down to infatuated princess who sacrificed herself for her one true love. And so, the emperor had very little choice. In spite of Mengzi's pure and noble character, her talent and her righteous nature, he could give her no important responsibilities. Still, he was loath to hand these memorials, so central to imperial power, off to other nobles. His spirit was willing, but his body was weak. At a glance, it was clear that, out of all his close siblings and cousins, he had only Murong Lian to rely on besides Mengzi and Yan Ping. There was no question of Yan Ping's capabilities. She had an ample bosom but no brain. Out of 10 young masters, she would sleep with 9. Young Master Mo was the only one who'd decline. She might do well if tasked with drawing erotic pictures, but the idea of having her look at military reports was laughable. As for Murong Lian, even ignoring the fact that his paternal grandfather had his own designs on the throne, the previous emperor had genuinely considered adopting Murong Lian as a son and naming him crown prince in the current emperor's stead. The emperor was destined to hold a grudge toward him, which left only Mengzi. Murong Mengzi was clever, wise, clear-headed, and competent. She was unfortunately female, But who was to say this misfortune wasn't the Emperor's greatest comfort? In the world as it stood, women could make no sweeping changes. They couldn't accumulate influence or win support. They had no mechanism whereby they could gather power into their own hands. As long as this woman remained unwed, the closest man to her on earth was her eldest brother, the Emperor himself. Thus, with Mengzi, he felt utterly at ease. Mengzi coaxed the candles in the library to burn brighter and turned to speak gently to her handmaiden. Yuanyang, a pot of spring tea for Shihajun. Yes. Yuanyang darted off and swiftly returned with a tray laden with tea and desserts. She arranged each item with care and smiled. Shihajun, please enjoy. This servant will remain outside, awaiting orders. The handmaiden's gauzy red skirts fluttered as she left the room, and the sandalwood library doors creaked shut behind her. Moshi lowered himself into a seat. How is His Imperial Majesty? How did he fall ill so suddenly? He asked. He won't say, and he doesn't allow the healers from Shenong Terrace to say much either, Mengzi sighed. I only know he was bedridden for the past few days. But it's nothing serious. I was permitted to visit him this morning. The most dangerous phase has passed, but he's still weak. I'm afraid it'll be another 3 or 4 days of recovery. She paused, then looked inquiringly at Moshi. Modaga, did you come to report on the results of the mission? Oh, yeah, Moshi, you're talking about Moshi's thoughts about Princess Yanping. I guess the narration that I've just been reading has kind of been in Moshi's head. But they did make it rhyme. They did make it rhyme, and I was like, okay, sure, yeah. Yeah, sometimes I have to remind myself the narration is usually, like, in somebody's perspective. Yeah, and also that I too hate that blue. A lot. It's like, oh, just to put some things in perspective right now. Yes. Mengzi looked concerned. Did everything go smoothly? Moshi gave her a heavily edited account. Yue Chunqing and the others were wounded, but they've already gone to Medicine Master Zhang for treatment. There were no other issues. That's good. Mengzi let out a breath. But I'm afraid Imperial Brother won't be well enough to see you for a few days. Mo Daga should write a report when you return home. I'll pass it to him on your behalf. Moshi thanked her. Seeing how tired she looked, swamped with documents, he wanted to help her with the memorials. But if the Emperor had handed these to Mengzi instead of assigning them to his officials, they were scrolls he didn't wish others to see. It's getting late, so I'll be heading back. You should get some rest as soon as you finish. Mengzi's pretty eyes shone as she smiled. Leaving so soon? You won't keep me company a while longer? Moshi didn't reply. I'm just teasing, Modaga. Look at you, so travel-worn. How could I have the heart to make you stay with me? Mengzi coughed lightly a few more times, covering her mouth, then added warmly, You should return. Rising, Moshi looked down at her. The night's cold and wet. Have Yuanyang bring you another robe. Mengzi smiled. I will. Moshi took his leave. He'd no sooner walked through the library doors than Yuanyang stepped back in. She had served Mengzi for many years. In front of others, she was a deferential servant, but the minute she was left alone with Mengzi, she let her tongue loose, unable to hide her thoughts. As she looked back at the doors through which Moshi had departed, she stamped her foot, plainly dissatisfied. My lady, what is it? Why did you let Shihajun go? Look, You've been back in the city for so long, but this is the first time the two of you have been alone together, and you didn't even try to keep him. Yuanyang pursed her lips in a moo? In a moo of disappointment? I have no idea what this word is, or if it's a typo. It looks French. You should at least ask him to stay for dinner or something, she mumbled. Mengzi dipped her brush into the inkstone, speaking as she wrote. Why would I keep him? He doesn't wish to be with me. How could that be? His spiritual core came at the cost of your health. My lady, if you ask Shihajun to go west, he definitely wouldn't turn east instead. The kindness you did him, he owes you an enormous debt. Mengzi smiled. It was only kindness. I don't plan on demanding repayment. What is my lady saying? Of course he must repay it. Faced with Mengzi's indifference, Yuanyang grew anxious. Shihajun is handsome and courageous, and his reputation is excellent, too. I heard that in the 3 years he was stationed on the northern frontier, he didn't touch a single woman, unlike those other young masters who have concubines lined up in rows. You'd be fortunate to marry a husband like that. Leave him be, and a mob of witches will be clawing at each other to become his wife or concubine. How can we let that happen? The longer she spoke, the more fretful she became. I won't stand for it. I won't. He can marry our princess and no one else. He can't be allowed to flirt with any other maiden. Mengzi listened to the girl shouting insolently, but continued writing without a word. Only after a long while did she casually ask, Yue thinks Shihajun is very handsome too. Of course he's. Yuanyang realized that she had been too bold and hastily backpedaled. No, no, no. Shihajun is like a holy deity. It's not the servant's place to speak of him. Mengzi smiled as she pressed a seal to a silk memorial scroll on behalf of her brother and blew the cinnabar ink dry. Don't worry, she said. You don't have to say it. I know you girls all like men like him. Tall, righteous, and reliable. All good things. Yuanyang spoke nervously. My lady, even if this servant had 1,000, 10,000 times more courage, I wouldn't dare. I wouldn't dare. What are you frightened of? Mengzi asked kindly. It's only chat, and I'm only picking a few of his good traits as an example. But Yue, have you never thought why such a remarkable person has yet to wed at his age? It's because my lady remains indisposed, Yuanyang mumbled. Why is it my fault? Mengzi looked up, still smiling. If he truly wanted to marry, he would have requested permission from His Imperial Majesty long ago. Her smile faded. He doesn't want to. That's why he's been dragging it out. And that's why this servant wants my lady and Shihajun to spend more time together. Look, the two of you rarely have any chance to meet. Yuanyang paused and bit her lip as if steeling herself for what she was about to say. And my lady, you don't know, but I've heard people talk. While you were away, Princess Yanping tried to Yanping was still a princess. No matter how close Yuanyang was to Mengzi, she didn't dare say the word seduce. In the end, she mumbled over it. She tried to do that to Shihajun. Look at the initiative she's taking, my lady. Why are you still pushing Shihajun away? Don't you know you're the only reason he's alive right now? If it were me, I'd feel it wasn't worth it. Henry, I just recently heard that song Gay or European again. It might have been in an edit for a show? That's going to be stuck in my head again now. And yeah, Princess Mengzi gets it. Henry, I think it's moo. It means face or expression. Like a pout. Okay, thank you. Mengzi shook her head. A melon torn from the vine isn't sweet. I won't force him into it. My lady, Yuanyang sounded indignant. Ah, but given your health, If Shihajun doesn't ask for your hand now, how long does he plan to make you wait? Don't talk nonsense. Mengze's voice was stern as she set down the brush. Shihajun and I are not betrothed. Who is making anyone wait? But I don't want to hear you speak of this again. Yuanyang bit her soft lip. In the end, she hung her head, dejected. Yes, my lady. Taking up her brush, Mengze unrolled a new memorial. For a while, it was quiet inside the library, yet soon Yuanyang started muttering sulkily once more. Shihajun, so callous and ungrateful. He's already got another girl behind my lady's back. The shame he's brought to my lady. The tip of Mengze's brush stilled over the scroll. She looked up. What do you mean by this? Yuanyang looked as if she was bursting to speak, but also as if it were unbearable to say. She held her tongue under Mengze's clear gaze for a long moment before finally blurting out, his hair ribbon. Yuanyang took a deep breath. I wouldn't expect my lady to notice, but this servant is used to waiting on people. I always take note of the master's clothes and ornaments. The hair ribbon Shihajun wore today was obviously not his own. It was raw silk, something only commoners use. But the embroidery was very fine, so it's a little tart who likes pretty things and dresses above her station. The words had already left her mouth, so Yuanyang barreled ahead with her eyes red and her cheeks puffed in a pout. I could tell right away it belongs to some poor hussy who seduced Shihajun with her common wiles. You're the only one who could be calm about this. This girl's ribbon has already made it into Shihajun's hair knot. How close must they be? Yet you don't see it. I'm so mad I could die. How could he betray you like this? Mengze didn't say anything. Her brush had soaked up too much ink. A black splotch landed on the scroll and left a dark stain. She lowered her pretty face to dip her brush again. It's only a hair ribbon, she said in a low voice. Maybe he just wanted to try something new. Don't think too much on it. You know how much of a rule follower he is. He's not that kind of person. Enough. Yuanyang fell silent. Mengze looked up at her. No more of this, she said blandly. Come here and grind some ink for me. Yes, my lady. So they're just wearing each other's hair ribbons, and they both have not realized it yet. Like... That's the end of that chapter. We are on page 127 for chapter 109, which is called Coffin Library, which is an interesting chapter title also. In the rustling night wind, Moshi left the palace, but he didn't return to Shiha Manor. The clues he discovered in the time mirror were still on his mind. As his long strides took him away from the Great Hall, he resolved on 3 questions to which he must have answers. Firstly, the black-garbed man. Before defecting, Gumong had met with a man in a mask. That man had spoken of Chonghua's inequities and urged Gumong to turn traitor, and Gumong hadn't said a word to oppose him. So who was that black-garbed man? Secondly, Warrior Soul Mountain. The black-garbed man had brought Gumong to Warrior Soul Mountain just before his defection. When Gumong visited the graves there with Moshi, he told Moshi the restricted area felt familiar. There was a good chance Gumong had done something on the other side of the barrier there, but what? What exactly was inside Warrior Soul Mountain's restricted area? Lastly, the prison. After speaking to Lu Jianxing inside the time mirror, Moshi was certain Gumong had secretly visited this man in prison before defecting. What had Gumong spoken to Lu Jianxing about? If he could get to the bottom of these 3 mysteries, he was sure the truth from 8 years ago would surface. But all of these events had occurred under a veil of extreme secrecy. Of those who had witnessed them, aside from Gumong himself, One person's identity was unknown, and the other was a dead soul beneath the yellow springs. Moshi didn't expect to loosen Gumong's tongue, so two paths of investigation remained. The first was to turn back time. The second was to find the history scrolls from that year. Turning back time required the time mirror, but the power of the ancient godly mirror was tremendous. Mortal bodies could only enter it once per decade. Enter again, and the mirror would devour them and crush them to dust. The time mirror was no longer an option. Moshi's footsteps slowed, and he glanced northward in the direction of the Imperial Censorate, where his hopes of answering these three questions lay. A piece of history stone was embedded in each of Chonghua's palace halls and imperial pavilions. From the day an emperor ascended the throne, he wore a string of pendants made of history stone, not to be removed until the day he died. These stones faithfully recorded all that happened in the empire, and court historians gathered them each month into a volume that was stored in the Imperial Censorate. There were sure to be secret records within the Imperial Censorate related to Gumong's defection. The issue with them was the possibility of falsehood. The royal family had always proclaimed the truth and reliability of the history stones to outsiders, but everyone knew that even if the stones couldn't lie, their keepers could destroy sections of the records. If the nation's ruler ordered historians to expunge some segments of history, who would gainsay him? Ancient Chinese times CCTV. It just occurred to me why this book might look smaller, even though it has a few more pages than the previous one. I think maybe this is when they started using cheaper paper, so the paper is like thinner and lighter a little bit, which I guess isn't great, but I kind of prefer when I'm holding the book, because this book feels noticeably lighter. Anyway, that is neither here nor there. Where was I? It was dark now. Night had swallowed the final glimmer of sunset. The stars in the sky shone as bright as the lamps on earth. Moshi gazed at the faraway Imperial Censorate. In the distance, some palace maidens on night patrol wandered with lanterns like a winding snake, passing by the carved white jade railing one after another. Yes, the scrolls inside the Imperial Censorate could be tampered with, but at least there was a chance. The Emperor was ill tonight, so the Imperial Guards were mostly concentrated around his private quarters. It was the perfect opportunity to infiltrate. Moshi watched the string of lanterns disappear into the darkness. After a moment of thought, he turned his steps toward the Imperial Censorate. The compound had 2 points of entry and exit, each set with barriers, as well as layer after layer of guards. This was hardly a hindrance for the top general of the Empire. Moshi made it into the main hall without much effort. In contrast to the sumptuous extravagance of most palace buildings, the structure of the Imperial Censorate was unusual. It was more accurately described as a tomb rather than a hall. A lofty monument stood at the entrance, carried on the tortoiseshell back of a statue of Bishi, as was traditional for mausoleums. 4 words were engraved upon its stone surface: "The past is dead." These words were the work of Chonghua's second emperor. Soon after Chonghua was established, its founding ruler suddenly perished of complications from a wound he incurred in battle. He died without penning any posthumous edict. There was no named successor, nor had it been decided whether the successor would be the eldest son, the one of most merit, or whether this new nation would use the system of fraternal seniority or patrilineal inheritance. Everyone had greedily eyed the empty throne, from brothers of the royal family to powerful officials and noble relatives. The bloody power struggle that followed devastated Chonghua for a full 14 months. during which countless citizens were unjustly imprisoned and loyal souls perished with unresolved grievances. The storm only died down after the seventh son of the founding emperor finally ascended the throne. But even sitting on the throne couldn't guarantee a ruler peace under these conditions. Chonghua's second ruler lived day and night, tangled in schemes and conspiracies. Plots targeted his empress, his sons, and even the emperor himself. He could never rest easy. In the end, his paranoia escalated to compulsion. He visited the imperial censorate at frequent intervals to look through the records over and over again. Where did a certain imperial brother go today? Whom did a certain important subject visit yesterday? If he caught wind of the slightest aberration, he traced it like a man possessed, unearthing every detail, and demanding the lives of all who thought to plot against him. This second emperor was exhausted by such a life. It was only after he grew old and passed the throne to his son that he understood the past died with the passage of time, and that bygones should be left as bygones. He'd come to this palace hall that was so familiar to him and so significant to Chonghua, and set down a monument at the doorway, leaving behind these 4 words: "The past is dead." What was dead was dust. Why obsess over it? Why look back? The third ruler was greatly moved upon seeing this monument. As a gesture of mourning for his imperial father and in honor of the late emperor's final wishes, he had the imperial censorate rebuilt in the style of a tomb. In this singular palace hall, the building was a cemetery, and the past was the deceased, warning all those who visited to forgive and let go. Blue, that makes sense. A very cheerful place, and, considering how much this story is about, what happened in the past, it's an interesting statement to be thinking about right now. If it wasn't important, they shouldn't pursue it. Even if it was, they shouldn't allow it to possess them. In the time since, few came to the imperial censorate in search of the past. There were many guards, but they were relaxed and idle. Moshi entered without alerting them. His steel-toed military boots clicked on the stone, echoing in the silence. The imperial censorate was cavernous, structured like a real mausoleum with 12 tomb beasts lining the path. The deepest passages delved at least 150 feet into the ground. Tomb rooms lined either side of the main path. Within them, scrolls recording the history of the empire were filed by year and stored with the seal stone outside, carved with the dynasty and the generation. Moshi swiftly reached the room with records from 8 years ago. As he gazed at the glimmering gold inscription upon it, he hesitantly raised a hand and sensed a powerful barrier. The tomb beast carved atop the stone door rumbled to life and spoke. Who? Who? The sonorous voice echoed endlessly down the passage. Goes there. This was a talisman seal set down by the second emperor. The imperial censorate held the official records of the empire and should reasonably be open to the public. But if anyone could go in and investigate the pasts of others as they pleased, palace affairs would become even more of a bloodbath. Thus the second emperor put down this barrier with a strict condition. Anyone who entered the chamber must truthfully report their name to the tomb beast. If any incident occurred as a result of the information divulged here, they could be investigated. The emperor himself was not accepted from this rule. This was a grave mistake, Moshi knew, but it was a measly price to pay to learn the truth. He put his hand over the spirit stone inlaid in the tomb beast's forehead and spoke clearly. Shiha Manor, Moshi. The beast's red spirit stone eyes shone as if to lay bare the truth of Moshi's words. After a moment the glow faded, and the giant seal stone made a thunderous noise. A voice that seemed to ring across the ages sang out, "The past is dead." With this final warning from the second emperor to his descendants, the door swung open, revealing to Moshi's eyes a stone room with 365 coffins emanating a bone-chilling cold. Each coffin represented one of the 365 days in the year. All that occurred in Changhua each day was collected within a jade scroll, catalogued, and placed within its coffin. Moshi knew which days he needed to investigate, as well as he knew his own hands. He walked without hesitation toward a row of coffins in the depths of the room. The truth was so close. His heart raced. Moshi stopped in front of a coffin, his dark eyes flashing. Yet as he stretched his hand toward the wood of the lid, he suddenly tensed. Moshi's eyes darted to the side of the coffin where the dust had been disturbed. Someone had opened this coffin before him. When he pushed the lid aside, his galloping heart dropped like a stone into a ravine, tumbling endlessly downward. It was complete disorder inside the coffin. The jade scrolls that held the records of the past were destroyed, some of the narrow slips more or less shattered to powder. Even before he arrived, he hadn't expected this escapade to go smoothly, but Moshi felt he had taken a great blow upon seeing the state of things with his own eyes. He braced both hands on the side of the coffin, closing his eyes and forcing himself to calm. The scrolls in the coffin were made of Kunlun's spirit jade. They should be near impossible to destroy. If they had been shattered, it was with intention. Someone who knew the secrets from that year and didn't want them exposed. And this person was certainly someone who wielded great power in Changhua. Under his strong brows, Moshi's eyes flickered beneath his eyelids. Shadows flashed through his mind. Murong Lian, censorate officials, or the emperor, perhaps even Gumong himself before he defected. All kinds of guesses flooded his thoughts. In this moment of torment, in which he felt his insides were splitting apart, a clamor sounded from outside, hauling Moshi back to the present. Footsteps and shouts rang out in the distance. Someone's trespassed into the Imperial Censorate. Quick, find them. Moshi glanced toward the open stone doors, then down at the coffin filled with shattered jade scrolls. He might never get the chance to come back after today. Acting on impulse, Moshi waved a hand and summoned all the jade scroll fragments into his Qiankun pouch, uncaring of whether they could be repaired. The cultivators guarding the Imperial Censorate had assembled in the hall, weapons drawn. Moshi had planned to hide here, then quickly leave this chaotic scene before the cultivators spread out. But on second thought, he remembered he had already given up his identity to open this tomb. The guards only needed to question each tomb beast. It would take at most a shichen before news of him sneaking into the censorate made its way to the emperor. What could he possibly accomplish in that time? Now I'm stressed out. Are you? You thought he was gonna jump in? I love that. Henry, you're just getting songs stuck in everybody's head. Hi, Sarah. Moshi took a deep breath. He adjusted the fall of his robes before slowly stepping out from the depths of the room. Although the guards were still far off, the instant the captain noticed Moshi, he raised his sword and cried, "Thief! How dare you bypass the Imperial guards and trespass?" In the next moment, the words died in his mouth as a figure strode slowly out from the shadows. Moonlight fell upon his fine-featured face, and the clamorous Imperial cultivators froze in shock. Some even fell to their knees out of habit. Shihajun. This subordinate deserves death. This subordinate didn't realize the honorable Shihajun was here. This subordinate misspoke. Moshi's prestige in Changhua was unmatched, and his image as a righteous and honorable man was deeply impressed in people's hearts. Had anyone else appeared unannounced in the censorate, the Imperial Guards would assume they were here for some nefarious purpose. But because it was Moshi, the guards automatically assumed Shihajun had accepted some mission too sensitive for their ears. No one imagined Shihajun would defy heavenly will for anything or anyone. He was depending on this. He gambled on his 30 years of spotless reputation as he walked in front of these dumbstruck guards, his sharp gaze sweeping over their youthful faces. "There is no thief," he said. "A secret order from the Bureau of Military Affairs requires me to investigate records from these years." The captain was stunned. "Does Shihajun have His Imperial Majesty's command token?" "I've already said it's a secret order." Moshi's pale lips parted, his frosty expression accompanied by an equally cold statement. "What command token?" "But this is a military matter. It's highly classified. I'd hoped to keep it quiet, but I see the diligence of you gentlemen is to be commended." Moshi gazed at their leader. "If the captain suspects me, you may come with me to His Imperial Majesty's quarters to confirm the facts." Who didn't know that the Emperor had been severely ill the past few days? Asking for confirmation would not only offend Shihajun, it would earn the captain a tongue-lashing from the Emperor and swift expulsion from the palace. Moreover, the man standing before them now was Mo Shi, the most upright and honest general of Changhua, the Empire's most decorated commander, fourth in a line of pure-blooded generals. What was there to suspect? The captain of the Imperial Guard lowered his head and cupped his hands. "Shihajun, forgive me. This subordinate was only following procedure. I beg Shihajun to pardon any offense." "No harm done," Moshi said lightly. "You must only remember to tell no one what you saw here tonight." "Understood." Calm and aloof as ever, Moshi left the Imperial Censorate. Only after stepping outside and feeling the night wind upon him did he realize sweat had soaked through his robes. This matter was dealt with for the moment, but there was no wall on earth that blocked every draft. The news of his visit to the Imperial Censorate would leak sooner or later. Moshi lifted his face to the moon hanging above the capital, casting its frosty glow on city roofs. His fingers inside his sleeve curled around the Qian-kun pouch that held the fragments of jade scrolls. Such badly damaged scrolls could only be repaired by the finest master artificer. Moshi had not a minute to lose. He needed to somehow find an extremely powerful, extremely trustworthy artificer. Almost as soon as the thought occurred to him, a suitable person came to mind. Yeah. That's the end of the chapter. His reputation is both a blessing and a curse. Yeah, that checks out. Gee, I wonder if we know someone who that could be. Ah. It's too bad we couldn't have a true coffin scene. I am going to take a 5 to 10 minute break, and when we come back, we're going to be on page 137 for chapter 110, which is called Strange Omens. So I'm kind of happy that we're having, like, fun little hijinks right now, because, I don't know. Well, I don't know, it's Meat Bun, so it's like things could be really depressing right now. Or there could suddenly be a sex scene for 2 chapters. Or there could be any number of things. But I'm enjoying just having, like, kind of a adventure, sneaking around, hijinks moment. But yeah, I will be back in a few. Oh, Nina, I'm sure the pain is coming later. Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah. Hello. I am back. I might have taken a minute or two too long. I'm sorry. I completely lost track of time. Turns out 10 minutes is a very short period of time. Yeah, we're chapter 110, Strange Omens. The great fictional TV show mashup. Which I have not seen Good Omens at all, and I really want to. I need to watch that at some point. Out of all those who had the ability, the only one he could trust was Zhang Yixue. Mo Shi wasted no time rushing towards Cixin Forge. The hour was very late. Cixin Forge was tucked away from the noisy heart of the city, so he encountered few people on the journey. Halfway there, a carriage burst from the cold fog. He could see as it neared that it was painted with vermilion bat sigils, the four corners of its elaborate canopy draped with golden bells that tinkled as the wheels spun. The coachman wore a short gauze hat, and his sleeves were narrow. With a crack, his crop landed on the flank of the golden-winged Pegasus in the carriage traces. Make way for Wang Shujun. Mo Shi frowned. Murong Lian, where was he off to at this time of night? He had no time for further thought before the carriage was hurtling toward him. It was too dark for the coachman to see Mo Shi's face. He shouted, Make way! Don't block Wang Shujun's path." Mo Shi dove out of the way. A man behind him pulled his wife to the side and respectfully lowered his head to wait for Murong Lian's carriage to pass. The moment it rattled off, he spat in disgust. It's the dead of night, but he's still yelling, Make way! Tch. Is he shouting at the ghosts to clear the roads? There's barely anyone out. What's the point? Inwardly, Mo Shi sighed. Truly, Murong Lian was an unpopular rich wastrel. But as he turned back to glance at the dust kicked up by the carriage's passage, he felt vaguely that there was something strange afoot. Murong Lian was a lazy man. He wouldn't get out of bed early, and he definitely wouldn't leave his manor in the middle of the night if it wasn't urgent. So what was happening tonight? The Wangshu Manor carriage swiftly disappeared around a corner. Mo Shi was overcome by an ominous premonition, his heart thudding violently. But at the moment, he had his own urgent task. He wasn't the type to put much stock in intuition, so he paid it no heed. Mo Shi turned away and strode toward his destination. The rheumy-eyed Uncle Song opened the door to Cixin Forge. When he glimpsed Mo Shi's face in the clear moonlight, he stood stunned for a moment. Ah, it's Mo Gongzi. Is Qingshu Elder here? Oh, yes, Xue. Song Laoban coughed, voice thick. And Laoban is a term of address for a shopkeeper or the proprietor of a business that means boss. Yes, Xue isn't at the shop tonight. He said he had something to do and slipped out earlier. This man had the tendency of the very old to ramble, so he happily continued. He said he'd get me some desserts from Lianhua's stall tomorrow morning. What a filial child. He knows that store has the best osmanthus cakes. If Mo Shi let the old man natter on, he'd be standing here all night. He gently cut him off. Uncle, I have urgent matters to discuss with him. Do you know where he went? The old man beamed. Of course I do. He went to the academy. He probably won't be back until morning. Oh. I also wonder what happened to the Pegasuses? Pegasi? Yeah, they're... What I recall is that I think in Arha they say this, that there was like a dwindling in the amount of like magic in the world from years past. I see, Uncle. Many thanks. Moshi coaxed Uncle Song back into the shop to rest. As he left, he closed Sishin Forge's doors on Jiang Yishue's behalf, then put up the closed plaque before setting out for the academy. But soon enough, Moshi crossed paths with another traveler. This time it was a black and blue carriage hung with silver skeleton bells, with an owl totem painted on the cabin. This carriage belonged to the Sishu Terrace elder, Zhou He. Zhou He was a noble quite close to the imperial family. His status wasn't as high as Murong Lian's, nor did he throw his weight around like Wang Shujun. But all of Changhua knew he was cruel, volatile, and eccentric, for he loved Sishu Terrace and its magical knowledge more than he loved his own Zhou clan. He was an absolute madman when it came to spellcraft. As Zhou He's carriage flew over the limestone path, Moshi found himself frowning. What was going on tonight? Despite the late hour, instead of remaining asleep in their beds, Murong Lian and Zhou He were rushing through the city streets. Could the emperor have taken a turn for the worse? But if the emperor were that ill, Mengzi wouldn't be going over scrolls so calmly, and he himself would have at least heard something. He watched Elder Zhou He's carriage lights dwindle into 2 orange specks that flickered like stars, swallowed up by the endless night. The anxious thud of his heart grew stronger. He felt as if a shapeless outline hovered before him, the specter of a crisis yet to occur. All of Changhua knew he was gay. See, my thought is, what if Gu Mong is up to something really big? Shihajun. When he arrived outside the academy, those spiritual jade doors as tall as 10 men were shut for the night. The guard was pleasant, but still conscientiously stopped Moshi. It's very late. The academy doors are always locked. Is there something I can help you with? The academy was a unique place. Here, all of Changhua's brightest young talents cultivated in seclusion before emerging into the world, hence its moniker, Dawn Academy. Since the academy was filled with inexperienced children, its protections rivaled those of the imperial palace. The same Shihajun who could go unannounced into the palace would be interrogated at the doors of the cultivation academy. Moshi knew the rules and remained calm. I'm looking for someone. Is Qingshu Elder staying within the academy tonight? So Shihajun is here for Qingshu Elder. The guard smiled. Qingshu Elder is receiving a guest today, and the guest has not yet left. Would you like to wait? Jiang Yeshui was a gentleman through and through, and many came to him with requests because they knew he was kind and easy to talk to. But Moshi was still surprised to hear a guest had come to call immediately after they returned from Bat Island and stayed so late. Moshi didn't wish to intrude, but the repair of the jade scroll could not be delayed. No matter, I'll go see him myself. In accordance with academy rules, he took a visitor's jade token and left his seal on the booklet. The great doors opened to him, and he stepped into the Cultivation Academy's grounds. It was a quiet, clear night. The little cultivators had to abide by the rules set by the elders and were asleep by the hour of high, shortly after full dark. This late, there was no one about. The eaves of the sprawling academy rooftops swooped up like wings, their golden tiles glowing in the silver light like a butterfly perched quietly on the curtain of the sky. Under the bright moonlight, it was like walking into a dream. After graduating and enlisting, Moshi had rarely returned to the academy. Fortunately, it had not changed much. Neither the drill grounds and courtyards, nor the halls and dormitories were much different from when he was cultivating and learning magic. Moshi didn't waste time reminiscing. He clutched the Qian-kun pouch holding secrets and hopes and strode purposefully toward the residences where the elders lived. When he reached the white jade bridge that linked the elders' residences with the sword practice platform, he spied a figure walking toward him from afar. Moshi stared for a moment in some amazement. Murong Chuyi? The man's head was lowered, so he didn't see Moshi standing at the other end of the jade bridge. He walked alone in silence. Absent was his usual immortal aura and floating grace. His steps were slightly unsteady, his hair knot slightly askew, wisps falling loose around his jade-like face. Moshi frowned. Murong Xiancheng. Murong Chuyi's head shot up. His usually aloof and proud face wore a layer of panic and distress he hadn't time to conceal. Yet what astonished Moshi most were the ends of Murong Chuyi's eyes, which were reddened as if he had endured some extraordinary disgrace. All his humiliation seemed to have transformed into scarlet fishtails, like rouge spreading in water toward the sharp corners of his phoenix eyes. You. Murong Chuyi bit his pale, dry lips. They were bleeding. Scarlet appeared where his lips touched. He whipped his head aside, but as if afraid evasiveness would be more conspicuous, he forced himself to turn back before long, gazing at Moshi through eyes cold as frost and sharp as a knife. Those eyes were misty. Perhaps Murong Chuyi thought he was hiding his emotions well and managed to look imposing. Moshi only felt that he was concealing his turmoil poorly. Vulnerability, resentment, shame, all of it was plain to see. After a long silence, Moshi asked, Xiancheng, are you well? A pause. Yes. They looked at each other, hearts heavy with their own concerns. Neither had a gentle temperament, nor were they especially close. Expressing any more care was futile. Moshi didn't like meddling, and Murong Chuyi liked it even less. Good night, Murong Chuyi said. They both performed a shallow obeisance and strode past each other. The night wind set Murong Chuyi's snowy white robes aflutter, the faint scent of orange blossoms rising from his sleeves. Moshi tilted his head as he caught the hint of a second scent beneath that refined fragrance, one he had smelled on someone else before. But when he tried to pin it down, it was like grabbing smoky mist with his bare hands. It slipped his grasp. Moshi frowned as he watched Murong Chuyi's silhouette melt into the darkness. What did he come to the academy for? He murmured. Of course he received no answer. Moshi stood for a moment, then turned back toward his destination. Although the elders' residences were all in the same area, they were well spaced out, and each was constructed according to the occupants' tastes. For example, the residence of Tai Wei Elder, who taught wood elemental magic, was hidden within a jungle of plants and vines, the walls covered with rose climbers. Each flower was the size of one's spread hand, and bloomed thick and yet lush year-round. Chong Hong Elder, who taught swordsmanship, lived in a residence surrounded by a barrier the white-yellow of lightning. A large garden surrounded his house as well, but it contained neither plants nor stones. Instead, what sprouted from the ground were a few thousand swords of different shapes and ages. Jiang Yeshui lived in a simple wooden house with a row of elegant bamboo swaying outside. Among this crowd of crazies, his home seemed uncommonly restrained. Moshi followed a narrow path of white gravel to Jiang Yeshui's door. He crooked his slender fingers and rapped sharply on the wood. Jingshu Elder. There was no movement from within the house. After a few more knocks, the door opened with a creak. A little clay servant falteringly peered out through the crack in the door. Someone had smashed its clay skull. Only half its head remained, and it was sobbing pathetically. Jiang Yeshui had always cherished these clay servants. He would never break them himself. Moshi's heart skipped a beat as he asked, "Where is your lord?" "My lord." "Lord." The servant stuttered incoherently. It had been damaged too badly, and stalled on the same words over and over again as it tried to complete its sentence. "My lord, don't, lord." Seeing as the door was now ajar, and the clay servant was broken, Moshi was afraid something had happened to Jiang Yeshue. He pushed the door open and stepped into the room. What he encountered inside was only more chilling. The bamboo flooring was splattered with blood. Next to the screened door, the exquisite Ruware vase, with its round base and elegantly tapered top, lay in forlorn shards on the ground. Jiang Xiong. Moshi strode into the inner hall and found it empty. He continued to the bedroom, opening the door to total darkness. No lamps were lit, and the window screen was tightly shut. But the air was suffused with that familiar scent, the one he couldn't place. Moshi raised a hand and summoned a fireball, throwing light over the room. There was no one inside, but the bedding was in disarray. A few wrinkled, snow-white garments were tossed in the corner, but nothing else was out of place. "Shihajun." A surprised voice sounded from behind him. Moshi whirled to see Jiang Yeshue sitting in his wheelchair, clad in a loose bathrobe the color of flax. He was wiping at dripping hair like inky jade as he looked at Moshi in shock. "What are you doing here?" That's the end of the chapter. What? I need to know what's happening. We are on page 145 for chapter 111, Elder of the Black Magic Trials. Yeah, Upon finding Jiang Yeshue unharmed, Moshi first sighed in relief, then he frowned again. "You're asking me, what happened to you?" Jiang Yeshue smiled. "Did something happen to me?" Moshi blinked. The doors were still open, showing the mess that covered the ground. No matter how one looked at it, it was out of the ordinary. Sensing the question in Moshi's silence, Jiang Yeshue explained, still smiling. "Oh, this. I made a new puppet that malfunctioned. It made quite a mess of the house." He shot a glance at that little clay puppet spinning around with its half-shattered head. "Look, it broke this one too." "I see." Moshi cleared his throat. "Apologies. I thought Murang Xiancheng." Jiang Yeshue's feathery lashes lifted. "You saw Chu Yi?" Said Moshi. "On my way here. I saw him leaving. I thought he was here to see you, that some disagreement occurred." Jiang Yeshue paused to cover his mouth with a sleeve, cleared his throat, and smiled faintly. "Is that so? Well, he didn't come here." As if suddenly chilled, he pulled his bathrobe closer and smoothed the white fabric. Then he reached up and tied his long hair, binding it into a relaxed ponytail and fastening it with a green jade clip. His face had a distinctive air of refinement. The lines of his features were as soft as spring-grown willow catkins floating on the water's surface. His skin pale as new snow fallen by the riverside on a winter's night. At the moment, he was fresh out of the bath, and so seemed even more like a beautiful piece of Hetian jade immersed in a natural spring's waters, soothing away all frustrations or doubts. "The Academy has many books on artificing. Xiao Zhou probably came to borrow one, not to see me." He paused, smile unfaltering. "Anyway, it's so late. I wasn't expecting any guests, so I went to take a bath before cleaning this mess. I'm afraid I've embarrassed myself before Shihajun." "The fault is mine. I'm the one who's bothered you at this hour. We're brothers who have shared life or death. Nothing is too much bother." Jiang Yeshue looked him over and asked without preamble, Did Shiha-jun come tonight because of Gu Xiong? Moshi paused. How did you know? Jiang Yeshui's gaze slid away from Moshi's hair ribbon, his slender fingers interlocking over his knees. He said nothing about the mismatched ribbons as he lowered his lashes with a warm smile. Other than military matters, the only thing that makes you so anxious is that dear brother of yours. Moshi was silent for a moment. Lifting a hand, he conjured a sound-vanishing barrier to ensure their conversation wasn't overheard. Then he looked squarely at Jiang Yeshue, his face solemn. "I've brought something with me." After a pause, he asked, "Do you remember what I told you on Bat Island, that I learned of some strange events in the Time Mirror?" "I remember. I found some clues regarding Gumong's defection 8 years ago." "Is that so? What are they?" Moshi stepped forward and placed his gold-on-black Qiankun pouch on the desk before Jiang Yeshue. Jade scrolls. Jiang Yeshue had been calm until now, but when he heard this, his eyes widened and his face paled. Incredulous, he murmured, "Did you steal the history recording Jade scrolls?" Moshi didn't speak. He pressed his lips into a tight line, then lowered his head and pulled open the ribbons of the Qiankun pouch to pour the fragments onto the table. The pieces of the history recording Jade scrolls scattered in front of Jiang Yeshue, glowing faintly. "Someone destroyed the scrolls," Moshi said succinctly. "This proves someone wants to erase what happened in Changhua back then." Jiang Yeshue was frozen in astonishment for a long while. Leaning back in his wheelchair, he murmured, "Moshi, you're out of your mind." At the same time, back at Shiha Manor, Li Wei's shrewd face was gleaming beneath the lights of the plum-blossom copper lamps. Lips curved in a flattering smile, he was attempting to have an amicable discussion with the crowd of guests standing stock still in Shiha Manor's great hall. These people wore purple robes trimmed in gold and embroidered with the insignia of 100 birds. The man at their head looked to be in his early 30s. His countenance was stern, and the faint wrinkles between his brows were evidence of his love of frowning. His lips were thin, and his eyes were cold, with an air of unbending arrogance. His entire aura was one that warded off strangers. This was the leading elder of Sishu Terrace, Zhou He. Everyone in Changhua knew Zhou He was quite insane. He was enamored of foreign magic techniques, regardless of whether they were good or evil, black magic or holy arts. There were none he wouldn't touch. His methods were indiscriminate, ranging from standard theoretical research to dark and bloody dissection of intestines and brains. The only reason he hadn't been named Chonghua's greed, wrath, or ignorance was because Murong Chuyi's absolute indifference, both toward people and propriety, was second to none. In effect, though Zhou He was vicious, he at least followed the rules. He refrained from opening skulls the emperor didn't permit him to open, albeit just barely. Now that this Zhou bastard had come to Shiha Manor, he wasn't so easily dismissed. Li Wei accepted a heavy tea tray from a serving girl. Bowing and scraping, he delivered it with a broad smile to Elder Zhou's table. "Elder, please have some tea and try some fruit and desserts." Zhou He made no sound. His fingers instinctively caressed the pitch-black dagger at his belt. Head lowered, Li Wei shot a glance at the blade. His heart pounded in his chest. The design was ugly, resembling nothing so much as a pair of fire tongs. Yet everyone was aware that this dagger was the most cherished treasure of Elder Zhou of Sishu Terrace. The holy weapon Lie Ying had picked its way through countless brains and dissected innumerable hearts, befitting the falcon that was its namesake. How many of the techniques currently in use within Changhua had been discovered by Zhou He wielding Lie Ying? Many called the Zhou clan vultures, searching for the secrets of magical techniques in piles of corpses. Zhou He, when he heard such things, sneeringly retorted that he didn't require a corpse. Many secrets could only be discovered while the subject lived. Any who didn't believe him were welcome to take a turn under his knife. Purple with golden trim, totem of 100 birds, the Zhou clan were not solely carrion-eating vultures, they were also Chonghua's falcons. With eyes that saw every detail, they picked the secrets of enemy nations from within crimson blood, and presented them all to the emperor. Li Wei attempted to make conversation. Elder Zhou, this tea was steeped with dew from Mount Tuiling. Zhou He cut him off impatiently. When will Shihajun return? Please wait a while longer. This subordinate has sent people to summon the Lord. Very soon they will. Zhou He produced an intricate water clock from within his robes and slammed it on the table. He looked up. A quarter hour ago, you said the same. I value efficiency. Let's have an exact time. Tell me if Shihajun will return within a shichen. Don't hem and haw. Sishu Terrace's black magic goo worms have been ready since yesterday. All we lack is the test subject. Now the specimen has returned, but I can't take him away. Instead, I must wait for your Shihajun to come back. Zhou He narrowed his eyes. All right then, I'll wait. I'll do Shihajun this favor on account of his status and authority. But this can drag on for another shichen at most. Housekeeper Li, listen up. Gumong is the test subject of His Imperial Majesty. Gumong is the test subject His Imperial Majesty personally granted me. When Shihajun brought him back to this manor, your master was ceded temporary custody. Gumong is a traitor, and has been named the most suitable subject for black magic experiments by imperial decree. I've spent so long gathering black magic goo worms, and now they're finally ready. Everything is happening. Henry, that's a good point. How is Murong Chuyi being rude worse than a guy dissecting humans? That's a good question. Why do I feel like the Emperor is trying to use experiments on Gumong to, like, find a cure to his illness? Or some sort of weird, like eternal life thing? I don't know why that's the thing that comes to mind, but, Zhou He grabbed Li Wei by the lapels with surprising force, tone laced with threat. I haven't much more patience. He shoved Li Wei away. Crossing one leg over the other, he said coldly, Understand now? Yes. Li Wei swallowed, shooting a glance at the water clock. I do, he murmured. No, I don't. Everyone knew Gumong would be used for Chonghua's black magic experiments, but damn it, you didn't tell anyone it would begin today, did you? You snuck around preparing everything without giving any notice, then rushed in to claim the prisoner. I don't have the means to stop your lordship, but shouldn't you at least stop by to chat when Shihajun's at home? Who would dare give Gumong up when Shihajun isn't here? The only person completely unbothered by the hostility filling the room was Gumong, who sat in a corner of the Great Hall. Despite suddenly finding himself Zhou He's quarry and a test specimen for Chonghua's demonic magic trials, Gumong was quite calm. When Zhou He arrived, Gumong had just finished bathing and was getting ready to sleep. Now he certainly couldn't go to bed. He sat on a chair with the loose bathrobe over his shoulders, inky hair framing his face. Chin in hand, he gazed at this flock of vultures. He was quiet, as obedient as a tempered prisoner ought to be. It was just that his earlier obedience was real, while his current obedience was faked. Although he'd recovered a majority of his memories since coming out of the time mirror, Gumong still couldn't recall some extremely crucial points. The absence of these memories was like a smoothly flowing poem missing its most important rhyme, rendering him unable to fully understand his current circumstances. Gumong could remember that the Emperor had indeed decreed him a test subject for black magic experiments. Yet when he searched what memories he had, he couldn't figure out how he'd ended up like this. Nevertheless, he was ready. He knew what he was determined to do, so he could endure it. "Quick, send another message to the Lord," Li Wei urged the manor's messenger servant. The servant was even more anxious than Li Wei. Beads of sweat stood out on his forehead. "I've sent it 17 or 18 times, but I can find no trace of the Lord." Li Wei was pacing in frustration, first sneaking a glance at the malicious-looking Zhou He, then peeking at the calm and composed Gu Mong. No matter which side he chose to offend, the consequences would be more than he could bear. He turned like a top again and again until inspiration struck. He came to a stop and waved the messenger servant over. Come here, hurry up, I have a plan." The messenger, thinking Li Wei had some new plan, waited with wide eyes, but the words housekeeper Li mysteriously imparted were, "Send another message." Speechless, the messenger replied awkwardly, "Housekeeper Li, didn't I tell you? I've already sent words 17 or 18 times, but—" "Have you got a pig's brains?" Li Wei prodded frantically at the servant's forehead. "I didn't say send it to Shihajun." "Then to whom?" "Princess Mengzi." Li Wei's quick thinking impressed even himself. No one but Princess Mengzi could afford the responsibility of letting Gu Mong be taken away. Li Wei prodded the messenger. Emergency help! Emergency help! Hurry and send a voice message to Princess Mengzi." As soon as the servant heard this, his eyes gleamed. Had they not been watched, he would have given Li Wei an enthusiastic thumbs up. Excellent. Head housekeeper Li was truly excellent. Gu Mong was kept in the manor like a concubine. Even if their lord purported to hate this concubine so much his skin crawled, anyone with eyes in Shiha Manor could see Moshi cared for Gu Mong. Now that Zhou He wanted to take concubine Gu away, was there anyone in the manor who could take the blame? There was only one, the lord's first wife. Though Mengzi had yet to officially cross the threshold of Shiha Manor, she was solidly considered to be Mistress Shihajun in everyone's eyes. She had selfishly saved Shihajun's life once already, so the only one who could take responsibility for dealing with said concubine was her. These two miscreants of Shiha Manor had found a piece of floating driftwood to cling to. They sent off a message to Princess Mengzi in utter delight, but before the messenger butterfly so much as crossed over the wall, it was shot down by a bolt of black light. Displeased, Zhou He raised his eyes to stare at Li Wei. "Who are you contacting?" Princess Mengzi." Zhou He pointed Lieying at him. "Li Wei, listen well. I came here today to take the prisoner. I'm here to tell you I'm doing so, not to ask your permission. Don't think I'll give you the chance to find someone else to plead on his behalf." Staring at the point of that holy weapon that had carved through endless gore, Li Wei broke out in a cold sweat. Yes. The elder is correct." Zhou He turned away. A silence fell over the room, the water clock counting the minutes, drop by drop, next to Zhou He's hand. Amid this crushing tension, a snort rang out, followed by a soft sigh. It wasn't a particularly loud sound, but in the silence of the hall it was ear-piercing. Everyone looked toward the source, only to realize it had come from the black dog Fan Do lying at Gu Mong's feet. Fan Do seemed as witless as his master. Since his master was sitting calmly, Fan Do was also markedly relaxed, drooling as he whined and snored in his sleep. Amused, Gu Mong placed his pale, bare feet on his fluffy fur. Subjected to a stepping on even in his sleep, Fan Do whimpered and blinked open his beady eyes to see Gu Mong was just playing. He closed his eyes and went back to dreaming, letting Gu Mong's jade-pale feet sink deep into his fur as they rubbed his belly and soft ears. But moments later, Fan Do sensed something. He flattened his ears and stared in the direction of the receiving hall as he yipped out an inquisitive bark. A servant ran inside. Thinking Moshi had returned, Li Wei was overcome with delight. but the servant's stunned expression wrung his relief instantly back into anxiety. What's going on? Head housekeeper Lee. The servant was visibly distressed. There's another group of people outside. Who? Before the servant could answer, the newcomers pushed their way into Shiha Manor, heedless of decorum. The boot-licking servant at the fore shouted with unimaginable pomposity, "Wang Shujun has arrived." Okay, that's the end of the chapter. Okay, it's 4:51. The next chapter is really short, though. I don't like ending here. I don't know where we'll be ending if we read the next chapter, but I kind of want to do that. So yeah, I think I'm gonna go ahead and read 112. Okay. This is chapter 112. Alian wants him too. Alian wants him too. I don't know why I keep forgetting. It's Ah. Everyone exchanged stunned glances as Murong Lian sauntered into Shiha Manor with his pipe held high. A group of Wangshu Manor attendants followed in his wake. The people he brought were all wearing the blue and gold of nobility, the bat insignia embroidered on their robes flashing. This crowd of glittering cultivators entered the manor like a knife, cutting through the attendants Zhou He had brought. No one expected Murong Lian to come calling in the dead of night, nor did they know what brought him here. The hall gazed at him in confused silence. Only Fan Do showed no signs of ill will, perhaps because he remembered gorging himself on Murong Lian's stores back at Luomei Pavilion. The instant he saw Murong Lian, he jumped up in excitement, rushing over to run joyous circles around him. Arf, arf. Woof, woof, woof. Gumong felt like he'd been betrayed by a comrade. The big black dog leapt up and down, barking as he nuzzled at Murong Lian's left hand with enthusiasm. Murong Lian didn't care for animals at the best of times. He waved his wide sleeves. Where did the damn dog come from? It's slobbering on this lord's clothes. Get it out of here. Yes, yes, Li Wei hastily answered. Aya, Wang Shujun honors us with his presence. Please excuse this subordinate for not coming out to greet him. 1,000 pardons, 1,000 pardons. As he spoke, he gestured for the other servants to collar Fan Do and take him to the back courtyard. Fan Do whimpered plaintively, his long tongue lolling as he looked back at Murong Lian with every step until the servants finally managed to drag him away. Murong Lian sighed and rolled his eyes, then lowered his head to straighten his brocade robes. Crazy dogs taking after their crazy owners, he muttered. Only after the fuss was over did everyone return to their senses, each making their obeisance and greeting Murong Lian. None of those present held high positions. The only noble was Zhou He, and his station was a sight lower than Murong Lian's. Even he had to satisfy etiquette. He rose and performed his bow. Zhou He was a lunatic obsessed with magic techniques, but he respected people with actual ability. Trash like Murong Lian were, in his opinion, no more than scum whose veins ran with noble blood. His bow was indifferent. Wang Shujun. The servants behind Zhou He lowered their heads and bowed as well. Greetings to Wang Shujun. In this room full of people, only Gumong hadn't moved. To others he looked like an idiot, but in fact he was surreptitiously observing this lord whom he had served for almost 20 years. Gumong knew Murong Lian's habits all too well, so it was only he who noticed something amiss. Specifically, something about Murong Lian's style of dress. Murong Lian was a man who adored extravagance. He constantly flaunted his noble birth and fabulous wealth, like a peacock fanning its feathers. He wasn't like Moshi, who didn't dwell on his wealth or care for ostentatious food and sumptuous clothing. Neither was he like Mengzi. Though each garment she wore was eye-wateringly expensive, its subtlety was a mark of its quality. Muranglian, on the contrary, belonged to a class of people whose every action screamed, "This lord is rich." Each puff of ephemera carried the scent of golden cowries, accessories to impress his enormous wealth upon others from at least a mile away. It was his habit, whenever he went out, to fasten the most costly gold or jade ornaments in his hair. Yes, they were heavy. No, it didn't matter as long as they were flashy. Best if they could dazzle the rabble's eyes until they couldn't see a thing. But Muranglian wasn't flashy at all right now. Though he was attired in a set of lavish sapphire robes with golden trim, the light blue layer that should have been worn beneath was absent. Only the snowy white of a silk inner robe showed beneath his collar. His hair knot was unusual as well, secured by a simple sandalwood hairpin. It was obviously something he chose for comfort, a careless accessory he wore while holed up at home, with no plans to see anyone. It seemed Muranglian had rushed out the door so quickly he only had time to grab the robe. He hadn't even redone his hair. Gumong found himself frowning, baffled. Zhou He had prepared the black magic goo worms yesterday. He wanted Gumong for experiments, so he hastened over to fetch him. What had Muranglian come for? As Gumong thought, Muranglian lifted those sultry peach blossom eyes and swept a glance around the room. His gaze paused momentarily on Zhou He, then landed on Gumong. In the instant Gumong met Muranglian's eyes, he felt an earth-shattering pain spike through his skull, as if something in his head had let out a heart-rending scream, trying to escape in terror and fury. Oh! Oh wait, am I back? Are we good? Okay. I think my internet just blooped or something. Okay. Did y'all miss anything? I was just saying, in the instant Gumong met Muranglian's eyes, he felt an earth-shattering pain. Okay, we heard all that? Okay. Cool. He clapped a hand to his forehead, screwing his eyes shut. Scarlet filled his vision as a twisted voice bellowed in his ears. "Let go of me. Let go of me. I'll make you live a life worse than death. A life worse than death." Oh, okay. Okay, y'all are good. You don't need me to repeat that. I think it was just saying that, yeah, Muranglian's jewelry is, not fancy right now. Fresh blood rushed out like waves breaking on the shore, and scraps of vision flashed chaotically before his eyes. He saw corpses piled into mountains, gore seeping through the city walls, the earth bathed in sunset's bloody glow, broken weapons in the sand. A sadistic satisfaction rose in his heart as he clamored for more death. He seemed to be flying through this mortal hell, endless scarlet as far as the eye could see. The pungent scent of copper seeped into his bones. He couldn't tell what he was feeling. It was euphoric delight crossed with black despair, as if his soul was being cut into two. General Gu. He tensed. This quiet address yanked Gumong from the surging pool of blood. He jerked his head up, panting through parted lips, clear blue eyes searching for the speaker. He met Muranglian's fox-like gaze once more. Muranglian took a puff of ephemera, slowly exhaling smoke. "Let's see. Did you have fun on your shameless little trip to Bat Island with Shiha-jun?" Gumong said nothing. After a few heartbeats, that head-splitting agony receded. Only the warm wetness in his blue eyes remained as his temples pulsed painfully. Gumong deliberately closed his eyes, straightening his back in the chair. His lips moved. Mimicking his manner from before, he quietly replied, had fun." All these important guests had driven Li Wei to the point of tears. He looked at Muranglian, then at Gumong, and finally at Zhou He. In the end, he lowered his head, fetched another tray of tea and snacks, and offered it to Muranglian. Wang Shujun, please take a seat and have some tea. Shiha Jun will soon... No need. I'm not here for Fireball. The soft tips of Muranglian's fingers tapped the tea tray as he pushed it away. He pointed at Gumong with his pipe, sneering. I'm here for him. Housekeeper Li was at a complete loss. Muranglian smoothed the front of his blue and gold robes. You've had your fun idling around long enough. Get up. Everyone looked between Muranglian and Gumong in confusion. Come with me, Muranglian commanded. Other than Zhou He, no one in the hall had the faintest idea what was going on. Gumong didn't move, watching Muranglian quietly. The wrinkle between Zhou He's brows deepened when he was angry, making him look increasingly demonic. He said with mounting irritation, Wang Shujun, what do you mean by this? What else? Does Elder Zhou not understand? Muranglian turned his head languidly, sultry eyes flicking towards Zhou He. I've come to take the prisoner. You've come to take the prisoner? That's right. Muranglian took another lazy drag on his pipe, holding the smoke in his mouth before slowly blowing it in Zhou He's face. His indolent smile blossomed like a slumbering flower, but the tongue beneath was as venomous as any snake. He smirked. Sishu Elder, this lord has come to claim him for black magic experiments. If the entire hall had been confounded before, now the mood turned to one of alarm. Zhou He's expression was ugly. He looked as if he wanted nothing more than to hack open Muranglian's skull and turn his brains to mince. An entire lifetime's worth of self-restraint was all that kept him from exploding at Muranglian. Even so, the sparks flashing in his eyes were terrifying, his gaze vulture-like in its ferocity. Wang Shujun. Each word was forced through the gaps in Zhou He's teeth. If I remember correctly, I am the top elder of Sishu Terrace, not you. Ayo. Muranglian bared his teeth in a mirthless smile, voice syrupy. Elder Zhou, if this lord remembers correctly, I am His Imperial Majesty's cousin, not you. Zhou He slammed the table in rage. Why are you bringing that up? What does it have to do with me? What doesn't it have to do with you? Both of us wish to do black magic experiments right now. Everything has been prepared. All we're missing is the test subject. Muranglian pointed at Gumong. What do you think? Will His Imperial Majesty give him to you, or to me? This was Muranglian's most shameless trick. He liked to bring up the Emperor whenever possible, name-dropping his cousin every second word, and no one could say a thing against it. Zhou He's deep purple lapels rose and fell with his heaving breaths. He glared at Muranglian. Wang Shujun, do you intend to pick a fight with me? Who's picking a fight? It's simply an unfortunate coincidence. Muranglian lifted his pipe to his lips and continued unhurriedly. You happened to have prepared your black magic goo worms last night. It's the same for me. I received a set of the Liao Kingdom's black magic spells just today, and I require someone to try them on. Look, we both need a dog. But... Muranglian paused, lifting his chin in Gumong's direction. This dog happens to be one this lord has raised since childhood. By all logic and all rights, this lord should be the one to slaughter it. Zhou He ground his teeth. You are certain you wish to oppose me in this? Muranglian's gaze drifted back to Zhou He, more enigmatic than an ephemera smoke. His voice satin soft. So what if I do? Does Elder Zhou want to sulk about it? Zhou He was silent a moment. The veins at his temples stood out so far the servants across the hall could see them. Li Wei thought, the two of you can go ahead and start fighting, daggers or pipes. It's none of my business if you start stabbing each other with them. But could you have your squabble outside Shiha Manor? If this lunatic Zhou really blows up and stabs Muranglian to death in our great hall, the blame will fall on my lord. As Li Wei was worriedly staging countless unspeakable and bloody outcomes in his head, He got his fury under control. When he spoke again, his tone was menacing. What if I refuse? Muronglian narrowed his eyes. Then I'd suggest you use your little lieging to poke around in your own brain, he said with a sigh. Perhaps the contents have gone bad or rotted away. The last shred of a cold smile vanished from He's face. Very well, you're really insisting on making this difficult. Gaze unwavering, He lifted a hand and spoke to the attendant standing behind him. Bring it here. What do you think you can use against me? Muronglian asked carelessly. I'm quite clear on your family's circumstances. You have a token of immunity from the late emperor that exempts you from imperial execution, but that'll be for saving your life, not getting your way. He didn't bother to reply. The attendant returned carefully carrying a brocade box wrapped in pale yellow satin. As soon as he saw the color of the box, the smile on Muronglian's face froze. You must know what this is. He took the gleaming brocade box and opened it with a decisive snap to reveal a scroll of top-grade East Sea snowy mermaid silk. In all of Changhua, this priceless sea silk was used for one thing only. Muronglian's head shot up, eyes flashing. When did His Imperial Majesty give you the edict? Why wasn't I told? He coolly unrolled the imperial decree so Muronglian could see the Emperor's seal and inscription. His Imperial Majesty gave me this edict the first year Gumong returned. Take a good look, Wang Shujun. By decree of His Imperial Majesty, my Sishu Terrace shall be the first institution to experiment on Gumong. He paused, then icily spat 2 words in a tone that brooked no argument. Step aside. Okay. That's the end of the chapter. It's kind of a... It's kind of a more of a cliffhanger, isn't it? I don't know. It's... Okay. Well, that was a lot of information that I just got, and also a lot of, like almost getting information, and then something standing in the way of it. Which Meat Bun does very well. But it's also so frustrating. We're gonna come back. Yes, at least we got a mention of Muronglian's sultry peach blossom eyes. Always have to mention those. We're gonna be back, not on Wednesday, but on Thursday. Thursday, 3 to 5 Eastern Time. When we come back, we will be on page 163 for chapter 113, which is called I'll Trust You Once More. Yeah. So, we are doing Thursday because Wednesday is my 9-year anniversary with my girlfriend. I forget if you saw that or if you were here for that, Nina. But also it's, so I was either going to do a 1-hour stream on Wednesday or move it to another day and do 2 hours. And, it's Brittany's, vacation week this week, so we won't be, interfering with her stream. 9, yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, so I will see y'all on Thursday. We will find out what the heck is happening. Hopefully, maybe not at all. But until then, y'all have an awesome couple of days. Peace out. Bye.